If you're living with arthritis and think you've tried everything to manage your pain, what I'm about to share might completely change how you approach your meals. 3 common plant-based proteins have been shown to naturally reduce inflammation and ease joint pain. Yet most people with arthritis have no idea they should be eating them daily. In fact, one of my patients suffered for years with morning stiffness so severe she could barely open a jar, until we made one simple change to her breakfast routine. I'm Dr. Helen Brooks, a rheumatologist with over 15 years of experience treating patients with various forms of arthritis and inflammatory conditions. Throughout my career, I've witnessed firsthand how dietary choices can either fuel inflammation or help calm it. And today, I want to share with you 3 powerful plant proteins that have made a remarkable difference in my patients' lives. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I strongly recommend hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications so you never miss another health tip designed specifically for you. If you find this video helpful, please leave your questions and video suggestions in the comments below. I read every single one, and your feedback helps me create more content to support people just like you on your health journey. Now, let me tell you about Margaret, a 67-year-old retired teacher who came to my office 3 years ago. She'd been dealing with rheumatoid arthritis for nearly a decade, and despite her medications, she was still experiencing significant pain and swelling in her hands and knees. Margaret loved gardening. It was her passion, but she'd given it up because she simply couldn't grip her tools anymore. The morning stiffness was unbearable, lasting sometimes up to 3 hours after she woke up. She felt like her body was betraying her, and I could see the frustration and sadness in her eyes during that first consultation. Margaret was eating what she thought was a healthy diet, lots of lean meats, dairy, and some vegetables. But she was missing something crucial. When I suggested incorporating specific plant-based proteins into her daily routine, she was skeptical. She'd heard about anti-inflammatory diets before, but never really understood which foods made the real difference. 6 months after making these changes, Margaret walked into my office with a smile I hadn't seen before. She told me she'd been back in her garden for 3 months, and while she still had some discomfort, the difference was like night and day. Her morning stiffness had reduced to about 30 minutes, and she could actually feel her fingers again. The first plant-based protein I want to discuss with you is one that Margaret incorporated every single morning: quinoa. Now, you might be thinking quinoa is just another trendy grain. But from a medical perspective, this ancient seed is a complete protein powerhouse with remarkable anti-inflammatory properties. Quinoa contains all 9 essential amino acids, making it one of the few plant sources that rivals animal protein in terms of completeness. But what makes it particularly valuable for arthritis sufferers is its high concentration of quercetin and kaempferol, 2 powerful antioxidants that have been shown to reduce the production of inflammatory markers in the body. When you have arthritis, your immune system produces compounds called cytokines that cause inflammation and joint damage. The antioxidants in quinoa help modulate this immune response, essentially turning down the volume on your body's inflammatory signals. Additionally, quinoa is rich in magnesium, a mineral that plays a crucial role in reducing nerve pain and muscle tension around inflamed joints. Many people with arthritis are actually deficient in magnesium without realizing it, and this deficiency can worsen pain perception. Quinoa also has a low glycemic index, which means it doesn't spike your blood sugar the way refined grains do. This is important because blood sugar spikes can trigger inflammatory responses throughout the body, including in your joints. Let me share with you the story of Robert, a 72-year-old former construction worker who'd been living with osteoarthritis in his knees and lower back for over 15 years. Robert had a classic working-class diet: meat and potatoes every night, white bread sandwiches for lunch, and very few vegetables. He'd gained weight over the years, which was putting additional stress on his already damaged joints. When he came to see me, he was taking maximum doses of over-the-counter pain relievers daily and was considering knee replacement surgery. Robert was hesitant about changing his diet. He was a creature of habit, but his daughter convinced him to try. We started by replacing his morning toast with a quinoa breakfast bowl, topped with berries and a drizzle of olive oil. For lunch, instead of sandwiches, he began eating quinoa salads with vegetables. The transition wasn't easy for Robert. He missed his bread, and initially, he found quinoa bland. But his daughter helped him experiment with seasonings and different preparations. Within 8 weeks, something remarkable happened. Robert noticed he was taking fewer pain pills. By the 4th month, he'd lost 12 pounds without really trying, and his knee pain had decreased enough that he could take his grandchildren to the park again. His orthopedic surgeon was so impressed with the improvement that they decided to postpone the surgery indefinitely. Robert told me that what surprised him most wasn't just the pain relief, it was that he had more energy throughout the day, and his digestive issues had improved too. If you're still watching and finding this information valuable, drop a comment below to show me you're following along. Your engagement helps me understand what content is most helpful for you. The second plant-based protein that can make a tremendous difference for arthritis is one that's been consumed for thousands of years across various cultures: lentils. These small legumes are nutritional powerhouses that specifically target the inflammatory pathways involved in arthritis. Lentils are incredibly rich in polyphenols, particularly flavonoids and phenolic acids, which act as potent anti-inflammatory agents in your body. When you eat lentils regularly, these compounds help inhibit the activity of enzymes called cyclooxygenase and lipoxygenase, the same enzymes that many anti-inflammatory medications target. Essentially, you're getting a natural, food-based anti-inflammatory effect. Lentils are also exceptionally high in fiber, with 1 cup providing about 15 grams, nearly half of your daily needs. This fiber is crucial for people with arthritis for several reasons. First, it helps maintain a healthy gut microbiome, and emerging research shows a strong connection between gut health and inflammatory conditions like arthritis. When your gut bacteria are balanced, they produce compounds that reduce systemic inflammation. Second, the fiber in lentils helps regulate blood sugar and insulin levels, preventing the inflammatory spikes that can worsen joint pain. Third, fiber helps you maintain a healthy weight by keeping you full longer, and every pound of excess weight puts about 4 pounds of pressure on your knees. I want to tell you about Patricia, a 69-year-old woman who came to my practice with psoriatic arthritis, a particularly challenging form of inflammatory arthritis that affects both the joints and the skin. Patricia had been struggling for 8 years, dealing with painful, swollen joints in her hands, feet, and spine, along with the skin plaques characteristic of psoriasis. She was on several medications, including biologics, but was still experiencing significant discomfort and fatigue. Patricia worked part-time at a library, a job she loved, but she'd been considering disability retirement because standing and organizing books had become too painful. Her diet consisted mainly of convenience foods, frozen dinners, fast food a few times a week, and very little in the way of legumes or whole grains. When I explained the anti-inflammatory properties of lentils, Patricia was intrigued but worried about preparation time. She was single, living alone, and didn't want to spend hours cooking. I suggested she start simple, buying canned lentils that were already cooked and just needed to be heated. We worked together to create easy meal ideas: lentil soup that she could make in large batches and freeze, lentils mixed into her pasta sauce, and even cold lentil salads that she could prepare once and eat throughout the week. Patricia committed to eating lentils at least once daily, sometimes twice. The transformation I witnessed in Patricia over the following months was honestly one of the most gratifying experiences of my career. After about 6 weeks, she reported that her morning fatigue had noticeably improved. By 3 months, the swelling in her hands had decreased enough that she could type more comfortably at work. What really struck me was when she came in for her 6-month follow-up and told me she hadn't needed to use her prescription pain cream in over a month. Her rheumatoid factor and C-reactive protein levels, both markers of inflammation, had dropped significantly in her blood work. Patricia didn't go off her medications. It's important to understand that dietary changes complement but don't replace necessary medical treatments, but the combination allowed her to function at a level she hadn't experienced in years. She told me through tears that she'd just signed up to volunteer teaching children how to read at the library because she finally had the energy and mobility to commit to it. But if those 2 proteins impressed you, what I'm about to share might be the most surprising of all. The third plant-based protein that can naturally soothe arthritis pain and inflammation is hemp seeds. Now, before anyone gets concerned, let me be very clear. Hemp seeds come from the cannabis sativa plant, but they contain only trace amounts of THC, the compound that causes psychoactive effects. They're completely legal, safe, and have no mind-altering properties whatsoever. What they do have is an exceptional nutritional profile that's particularly beneficial for inflammatory conditions. Hemp seeds are a complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids in good proportions. Just 3 tablespoons provide about 10 grams of protein. But what makes hemp seeds truly special for arthritis sufferers is their ideal ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. Most Western diets are heavily skewed toward omega-6 fatty acids, which, when consumed in excess without adequate omega-3s, can actually promote inflammation. Hemp seeds provide a balanced ratio that helps reduce inflammatory processes in the body. The omega-3 fatty acids in hemp seeds, particularly alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, are converted in your body to compounds that actively reduce inflammation at the cellular level. They work by decreasing the production of inflammatory cytokines and increasing the production of anti-inflammatory compounds called resolvins. Let me introduce you to Thomas, a 65-year-old man who'd been battling ankylosing spondylitis, a type of arthritis that primarily affects the spine. Thomas had been diagnosed in his early 40s, and over the years, the condition had caused significant stiffness and fusion in his lower back. He'd been relatively stable on medication, but about 2 years before I met him, he'd started experiencing severe flare-ups that left him practically immobilized for days at a time. The pain would radiate from his lower back into his hips and down his legs. Thomas had been an avid cyclist before his condition worsened, and giving up that hobby had sent him into a depression. He'd tried various diets over the years, eliminating gluten, dairy, nightshades, you name it, with minimal success. When he came to my office, he was frankly exhausted from trying to figure out what might help. I could see the defeat in his posture, the way he moved so carefully, as if any wrong movement might trigger another flare. When I mentioned hemp seeds, Thomas actually laughed. He thought I was joking at first. But I explained the science behind them, the omega-3 content, the anti-inflammatory properties, and the gamma-linolenic acid they contain, which is particularly effective at reducing joint pain and stiffness. Thomas decided to give it a try, though I could tell he didn't have much hope. He started adding 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds to his morning smoothie and sprinkling them on his salads at dinner. He combined this with the quinoa and lentils we'd also discussed, creating a truly anti-inflammatory dietary approach. The first month, Thomas noticed his digestion improved, and he felt slightly less bloated, but his back pain remained unchanged. I encouraged him to continue, explaining that dietary interventions often take time to show their full effects, especially with chronic inflammatory conditions. By the 8th week, something shifted. Thomas woke up one morning and realized he'd slept through the night without waking from back pain, something that hadn't happened in over a year. The flare-ups, which had been occurring every 2 to 3 weeks, started spacing out to once every 5 or 6 weeks, and when they did occur, they were less severe and shorter in duration. By 6 months, Thomas had returned to cycling, starting with just 10 minutes on flat terrain and gradually building up. When he came for his annual checkup, he rode his bike to my office, something he never thought he'd be able to do again. He told me that while he still had stiffness, particularly in the mornings, his quality of life had improved dramatically. He was sleeping better, his mood had lifted, and he felt like he'd reclaimed a part of himself that he thought was lost forever. Now, you might be wondering how exactly to incorporate these 3 plant-based proteins into your daily routine without completely overhauling your life. The truth is, it doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. For quinoa, think of it as a replacement for rice, pasta, or bread. You can cook a large batch at the beginning of the week and use it in different ways throughout the days ahead. Have it as a warm breakfast porridge with cinnamon and fruit, use it as a base for grain bowls with vegetables and your choice of toppings, or add it cold to salads for extra substance. Quinoa cooks in about 15 minutes, actually faster than rice, and you can even find pre-cooked quinoa in many stores if you're truly pressed for time. For lentils, the options are even more diverse. Red lentils cook quickly, in about 15 minutes, and break down into a creamy texture that's perfect for soups and stews. Green and brown lentils hold their shape better and work wonderfully in salads or as a side dish. You can add cooked lentils to virtually any meal. Mix them into ground meat to stretch it further, while reducing the overall inflammatory load. Add them to pasta sauces for extra protein and fiber, or simply season them with your favorite spices and eat them as a side dish. Canned lentils are a perfectly acceptable option. Just rinse them well to reduce the sodium content. Hemp seeds are perhaps the easiest to incorporate because they require absolutely no preparation. They have a mild, slightly nutty flavor that complements both sweet and savory dishes. Sprinkle them on your morning oatmeal or yogurt, blend them into smoothies for extra creaminess and protein, add them to baked goods like muffins or bread for a nutritional boost, or simply sprinkle them on salads, soups, or roasted vegetables. 3 tablespoons a day is an ideal target. but even 1 tablespoon daily will provide benefits. Some people even make hemp seed milk by blending the seeds with water and straining, though this isn't necessary to get the anti-inflammatory benefits. One thing I always emphasize to my patients, and I want to emphasize to you as well, is that these dietary changes work best when they're part of a comprehensive approach to managing arthritis. I've seen patients who incorporate these plant proteins alongside their prescribed medications, regular gentle exercise like swimming or tai chi, adequate sleep, stress management techniques, and maintenance of a healthy weight experience the most dramatic improvements. These foods are not magic bullets, and they won't cure arthritis, but they can significantly reduce inflammation, decrease pain levels, improve mobility, and potentially reduce your reliance on pain medications over time. I also want to address a concern some people have when I recommend increasing plant-based proteins. What about complete nutrition? The beautiful thing about combining these 3 proteins, quinoa, lentils, and hemp seeds, is that together they provide an exceptional range of nutrients. You're getting complete proteins with all essential amino acids, a wide variety of vitamins including B vitamins that are crucial for energy and nerve health, minerals like iron, magnesium, zinc, and calcium that support bone health and reduce inflammation, healthy fats that fight inflammation and support brain health, and abundant fiber that supports gut health and weight management. This combination addresses many of the nutritional deficiencies that can worsen arthritis symptoms. Let me share one more story that really illustrates the power of this approach. Dorothy was a 73-year-old woman who'd been living with both osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis, a challenging combination. She'd had multiple joint replacements, including both knees and 1 hip, and was facing another surgery on her hands. Dorothy's fingers were so deformed from years of inflammation that she couldn't button her own shirts or hold a pen to write. She'd been on various medications for decades, and while they'd slowed the progression of her rheumatoid arthritis, they hadn't stopped it completely. Dorothy had essentially given up on dietary interventions because she'd tried eliminating so many foods over the years with no noticeable benefit, and she was tired of feeling deprived. When I suggested adding foods rather than eliminating them, her eyes lit up. The idea of eating more of something rather than restricting appealed to her. Dorothy started slowly, adding one of these proteins to her diet each month so she wouldn't feel overwhelmed. She began with quinoa because it was the most familiar to her, then added lentils, and finally hemp seeds. By the time she'd been eating all 3 regularly for about 4 months, she noticed something remarkable. The pain in her remaining natural joints, particularly her shoulders and ankles, had decreased noticeably. But what really amazed her was that the inflammation in her hands seemed to stabilize. Her rheumatologist noted at her next appointment that her inflammatory markers had decreased for the first time in years. Dorothy didn't avoid the hand surgery. The damage was already done, but after the surgery, she recovered more quickly than expected, and the surgeon commented on how healthy her tissues looked despite her age and disease history. A year into her new eating pattern, Dorothy joined a watercolor painting class, something she'd always wanted to do, but thought her hands would never allow. She sent me a photo of her first painting, a simple landscape, with a note that said, "Thank you for giving me back a piece of my life I thought was gone forever." These stories aren't unique or extraordinary in my practice. I've seen dozens of patients experience similar improvements when they commit to incorporating these anti-inflammatory plant proteins into their daily diets. What makes the difference between those who benefit and those who don't isn't some mysterious factor, it's consistency. The patients who see results are the ones who make these foods a regular part of their routine, not something they try for a week or 2 and then abandon. Inflammation is a chronic process, and reducing it requires sustained dietary changes. Think of it like taking your medication. You wouldn't take your arthritis medication for a few days and then stop because you didn't see immediate results. The same principle applies to anti-inflammatory nutrition. I want to address something important. If you're currently taking medications for your arthritis, please don't stop them or reduce them without consulting your doctor. These dietary changes should complement your medical treatment, not replace it. In fact, when I work with patients to incorporate these plant proteins, I continue their medications and monitor them closely. Over time, some patients find they can reduce certain medications, particularly over-the-counter pain relievers, but this should always be done under medical supervision. Additionally, while these foods are safe for most people, if you have any allergies, are taking blood thinners, or have other health conditions, discuss these dietary changes with your healthcare provider first. Lentils and other legumes can cause digestive discomfort in some people, especially when first introduced, so start with small amounts and gradually increase. Drink plenty of water to help your body adjust to the increased fiber. Another question I often hear is about cost. One of the beautiful things about these plant-based proteins is that they're actually quite economical compared to animal proteins. A pound of dried lentils costs just a few dollars and provides numerous servings. Quinoa has become much more affordable as it's gained popularity, and you can often find it in bulk sections of grocery stores at very reasonable prices. Hemp seeds are the most expensive of the three, but remember that you only need a few tablespoons per day, so a bag will last quite a while. When you consider that many people spend significant money on supplements, over-the-counter pain medications, and treatments that may not work, investing in these whole foods that provide multiple health benefits beyond just arthritis relief is actually quite cost-effective. Let's talk about what you can expect realistically when you start incorporating these foods. In the first 2 weeks, you probably won't notice dramatic changes in your arthritis symptoms, though some people report improved digestion and energy levels. This is your body adjusting to the increased fiber and beginning to benefit from the nutrients. Between weeks 3 and 6, you may start noticing subtle improvements. Perhaps slightly less morning stiffness, or you might realize you went a few days without thinking about your pain as much. These small changes are actually significant. They indicate that the inflammatory processes in your body are beginning to shift. From 6 weeks to 3 months, this is often when people notice more obvious improvements: reduced swelling in joints, decreased pain levels, improved mobility, better sleep quality because of reduced pain, and possibly reduced reliance on pain medications. After 3 months and beyond, the benefits typically become more pronounced and stable. Many of my patients report sustained improvement in their symptoms, better overall health and energy, and an improved sense of well-being that extends beyond just their joints. It's important to understand that everyone's response will be somewhat different. Factors like the type of arthritis you have, how long you've had it, how much joint damage has already occurred, your overall diet and lifestyle, your stress levels and sleep quality, and other health conditions you may have will all influence your results. Some people respond quickly and dramatically, while others notice more gradual, subtle changes. But in my clinical experience, the vast majority of patients who consistently eat these plant-based proteins alongside their regular treatment experience some degree of benefit. I also want to mention that while I've focused on these 3 specific plant proteins today, they work even better when combined with an overall anti-inflammatory dietary pattern. This means emphasizing colorful vegetables and fruits, using olive oil as your primary fat, including fatty fish or algae-based omega-3 supplements if you're fully plant-based, limiting processed foods, refined sugars, and excessive omega-6 oils, staying well hydrated with water, and limiting alcohol consumption. These 3 proteins are like the foundation of an anti-inflammatory approach, but building on that foundation with other healthy choices will maximize your results. Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something crucial. Arthritis is a complex condition that requires proper medical care. While these dietary changes can be powerful tools in managing your symptoms and reducing inflammation, they should never replace regular checkups with your rheumatologist or healthcare provider, necessary medications that are controlling your disease, appropriate exercise and physical therapy, and other treatments your doctor has recommended. What I'm offering you today is an additional tool, a way to support your body's natural ability to reduce inflammation and heal while working alongside your medical treatment. So here's what I want you to take away from our time together today. First, quinoa, lentils, and hemp seeds are 3 plant-based proteins with scientifically supported anti-inflammatory properties that can help reduce arthritis pain and stiffness. Second, these foods work by providing antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, fiber, and other nutrients that actively combat the inflammatory processes underlying arthritis. Third, consistency is key. You need to make these foods a regular part of your diet, ideally daily, to experience their full benefits. Fourth, these dietary changes complement but don't replace your medical treatment. Always work with your healthcare provider. And fifth, realistic expectations are important. Most people begin noticing benefits between 6 to 12 weeks, with continued improvement over time. If you're living with arthritis, I understand how challenging it can be. The constant pain, the loss of mobility, the frustration of not being able to do things you once did easily. It all takes a toll, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. What I've shared with you today isn't a cure. I wish I could offer you that, but it is a path toward better management of your symptoms and improved quality of life. The patients I've told you about, Margaret with her morning stiffness, Robert who postponed his knee surgery, Patricia who returned to her beloved library work, Thomas who got back on his bicycle, and Dorothy who discovered watercolor painting. They all started exactly where you are now, looking for answers, hoping for relief, and willing to try something new. I encourage you to discuss these dietary additions with your doctor at your next appointment. Ask them what they think about incorporating quinoa, lentils, and hemp seeds into your daily routine. Most healthcare providers are increasingly recognizing the importance of nutrition in managing inflammatory conditions, and they'll likely support your efforts. Start small if you need to. Maybe just add one of these proteins to one meal per day for the first week, then gradually increase from there. Pay attention to how your body responds. Keep a simple journal noting your pain levels, stiffness, and overall well-being so you can track your progress over time. Remember, every journey toward better health starts with a single step, or in this case, a single meal. The power to reduce your inflammation and ease your pain is literally on your plate. You have more control over your arthritis symptoms than you might think, and these 3 plant-based proteins are a fantastic place to start taking that control back. If you found this information helpful, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, have you tried any of these proteins before? Are you planning to incorporate them into your diet? What other topics related to arthritis or inflammatory conditions would you like me to cover? Your questions and feedback help me create content that truly addresses what you need. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos where I'll continue sharing evidence-based information to help you live your healthiest, most comfortable life possible. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me reach more people who might benefit from this information. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I'm Dr. Helen Brooks, and I'm here to support you on your journey toward better health and reduced pain. Take care of yourself. Be patient with your body as you make these changes, and remember that small, consistent steps can lead to significant improvements over time. Here's to less pain, better mobility, and more days where you can focus on living your life rather than managing your arthritis.